Just going to do a quick overview of zHome Plus. I've just been playing with it as a replacement to Imperial Home. There's some good things I like about the product. Sharing is just as in request configuration on one, you then share it, the other one connects to it, and you can share that configuration very quickly. In this case here, this device, if I'm going to share a configuration, I go share on the other device, go config, transfer is done with a couple of seconds, it's all over and done with. Right, you can set up multiple profiles. In this case here it's got one. You can see that default home settings, I'll just go in there for a moment. You can see they've got two different styles of UI, a vertical style which has got the scrolling of the rooms on the left hand side with the controls to the right of them, and then we've got the old tile style which is, I'll call it for this case the room, which I'll show for most part of it. I will come back to it in a moment. Can configure custom rooms. In this case here it's got a couple there as an example. I've just put in lights, edit the room, add a device. Can be done, you just select the device, add it, and it'll appear there on the home screen when you go back in there as custom room. You can show only custom rooms down the bottom there if that's all you want to see, and configure the device specifically to only see the rooms that you want to see. Just remembering that you can hide or show devices within HomeSeer itself by showing mobile app. Pretty similar to HS Mobile, but there's a bit more flexibility in many ways here. Just some of the other settings: multi-level, select room icons, remove weather location is only available at this point of time for the US. I'm not in the US, so mine's non-functional. And then you've got your touch testing and about, obviously, what the product is and what the version is. So we've been working as a test for this. So I'm just going to go in the rooms, look at, for example, Philips Hue in here. I'm just going to bring up the devices for all devices just to show some of the controls. I'm not going to go through them all. On, off, the color option. You know, in this case here, you can change the configurations up and down for that. Within the Hue itself, it gives a slightly different scenario there, up, down, color loop, and that's available for the individual lights. Obviously, you've got the individual controls for the individual colors, saturation, up or down, set your saturation, your color temperature, up or down, and a slider, and there you go. Right, so that's basically on the Hue front. Go back to the room, and I'm just going to talk about like a Aerotech or a Fabrio RGB light. So it's configured there as a color wheel. Select the color wheel, tap to select, and it sets the light to the. Just remembering that they only set the RGB channels, so your red, greens, and blue. If you've got warm white, you know, they override because they're more powerful. So you may need to turn those off depending on the device you've got and how it's configured. Just back to the room. He's now working on the Sonos controls. Cameras are non-functional in this device. Just using here, I've got my curtains that are controlled by an RFXcon TRX, and you know, it brings in the controls of open, close, stop, and learn. So quite simple across the board. Here's one of the rooms I just configured, depending on what you put in it, to do that. So basically, it is very quick. As you can see, as I move through the things, you can hide and hide and show your controls, master on, master off for these things, depending on what you've got. In this case here, I'll just go back to this is using Jono's Davis connection, and in this case here, I'm showing my weather from my Davis weather station VB2. So it brings in all those information. Some other ones I've got in there which are quite unusual in the RFXcom is I've got some other devices that bring in, I've got a data one up here which is just bringing in from EchoWit GW100 somewhere, and it's data. Doesn't matter what's not really configured because I haven't done anything with it. But what I was after there in this case here was just to see the soil moisture things, because that tells me from all the ones that are around the house for the plants what the soil moisture contact is. It's actually getting quite dry, and that tells me that if I don't do something or my wife doesn't do it, it'll be like every other plant in the house, it will perish. So it's just a reminder for him. There's not much around that thing. It does bring in some of your controls that you bring in there for your events. It's not configured, as I said. You can do multiple controls for that across the board. Default home, and that's basically it. Is quick in comparison to HomeSeer. If I brought up HomeSeer in a comparison, wrong one. I don't even know where I've got because I find it. To do it, it is a hell of a lot quicker than this. Anyway, that's it. Just thought I'd give you a view. That's what I'm using now to replace Imperial Home. My wife prefers it. She finds the other ones less functional for her, not as tactile, not as responsive. And if she says if I've got to wait for a device to be displayed to do something, I might as well walk over and turn it off. This is the difference. If it is a device that is close, and I'm going to walk to it because it takes me longer to open up this, to open up an app, to find the trigger and then trigger it, it's not worth the effort. In this case here, because it is quick and all you've got the multiple controls for all off and configure all those within your events, this has been what she adopted. So she tells me what she wants and she says these are things, and I'll configure it for her control on her phone. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much.